Antibiotics feel like a safety net, a way to stay protected when things go wrong. An infection, a wound, something unexpected, and having antibiotics nearby feels like having control over the situation. So people start thinking ahead. What if I just keep some at home? It sounds logical, responsible, even. But that decision carries a layer most people don't fully see. Because antibiotics are not like painkillers. They're not general-purpose tools you can use whenever something feels off. And that misunderstanding is where the real risk begins. Imagine this. You're dealing with an infection. There's redness, swelling, maybe pain. You remember you have antibiotics stored somewhere. You take them, expecting things to improve. Sometimes they do. Sometimes they don't. And when they don't, people assume the problem is the infection itself. But often, the issue started much earlier with the decision to use that specific antibiotic in the first place. Not all infections are the same. Some are caused by bacteria. Others aren't. And antibiotics only work against bacteria. That sounds simple, but in practice, it's not. Because symptoms don't come labeled. A sore throat could be bacterial, or viral. A skin issue could be an infection or something else entirely. From the outside, they can look almost identical. So without proper evaluation, using antibiotics becomes a guess. And guesswork, in this case, has consequences. Because when antibiotics are used incorrectly, wrong type, wrong timing, wrong duration, they don't just fail to solve the problem. They change it. Bacteria that survive that exposure can become more resistant, harder to treat later. Not just for one person but on a broader scale. And this is the part most people never consider. The real issue isn't stockpiling antibiotics. It's assuming they're a universal solution. The real issue isn't having them. It's not knowing when they actually apply. In a structured medical setting, antibiotics are selected based on patterns, symptoms, progression, likely causes, sometimes testing. There's a process behind the choice. At home, without that structure, people tend to simplify the decision. Infection equals antibiotics. But that shortcut skips the most important layer, the type of infection and how it behaves. And that's where mistakes compound. Some people take antibiotics too early, for conditions that would resolve on their own. Others take them too late, when the situation has already escalated. Some stop as soon as they feel better, not realizing that incomplete treatment can leave behind stronger, more resistant bacteria. Each of these decisions feels reasonable in the moment, but they're disconnected from the underlying structure that makes antibiotics effective in the first place. And that's the turning point. The real issue isn't access to antibiotics. It's the lack of a framework for deciding how and when to use them. Because antibiotics are not just tools, they're targeted interventions. Using them correctly requires understanding patterns, not just reacting to symptoms. In environments where medical access is limited, people who handle this better don't rely on antibiotics as a first response. They observe. They look at progression, duration, changes over time. They try to distinguish between something that's likely to resolve and something that's escalating. They don't rush to act, but they also don't ignore warning signs. That balance is what makes the difference. Because once antibiotics are used, the decision is already in motion. You're not just treating, you're influencing how the situation evolves. And that's why preparation isn't just about having supplies. It's about understanding categories. When antibiotics might be relevant. When they're not. What signs suggest escalation? What patterns suggest waiting? That doesn't eliminate uncertainty, but it reduces blind decisions. Because in real situations, especially when help isn't immediately available, people don't fail because they lack tools. They fail because they misinterpret the situation those tools are meant for. If you want a more structured way to think through situations like this, how to understand when antibiotics make sense, how to avoid common mistakes, and how to interpret symptoms more clearly, there's a practical guide linked in the description that breaks this down in detail. You can also subscribe if you want more videos focused on understanding these decisions, instead of just reacting to them. Because the more clearly you understand the structure behind a problem, the less likely you are to make a decision that makes it worse.